All right, it's 5 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Carver Select Board for Tuesday, April 26, 2022. This meeting is being cablecast by Area 58 Community Access Media, Channel 15, and will be posted by Area 58 on YouTube as soon as possible. There are openings on several committees. Please refer to the Select Board page on our website for a listing and application. If we could all stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
A little delay.
Yeah, a little delay there, John.
Ms. Bogart, would you like to read? Ms. Bogart, would you like to read the community prayer?
Almighty God, humbly we pray your blessing as we concern our life with the opportunity to serve our community. Enhance us with your spirit of dignity and selflessness. May we become instruments of support and understanding as we seek to bring an environment of trust and purpose among all who provide the many services that make us all that we can become. Help us achieve the goals of our commitment in this office that is now our responsibility. And especially, we lift our prayers for all the citizens of our community that we've been allowed to serve, that they may discover the fullness and joy of life that we all seek. And keep those serving in our armed forces and our first responders in our hearts and thoughts. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right, Mr. Fennessy, at this point, I will turn the meeting over to you for the reorganization of the board.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So as the chairman of the select board, I'll entertain motions to nominate a chair.
I'll make a motion to nominate Sarah Hewins for chair.
Okay, any second?
I'll second that.
Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mark Townsend for chair.
Any-
Second that nomination.
Okay. Any other nominations? Having none, we'll go to a vote. Nomination of Sarah Hewins as the chair for the select board.
Do we have
Please say aye.
discussion?
Oh, if you want to discuss.
Well, I just wanted to say, Mark, I think you've done great. I just like the rotation. Sarah did it for a year, Mark did it for a year. I see no problem with Sarah doing it for another year, so that's just why, just rotating.
Any other discussion? John, no? Okay.
No, I understand her point.
Okay. So on the nomination for Sarah Hewins, please say aye.
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 So what's that, 2? And for Mark Townsend,
Aye.
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 3. Okay, so Mark Townsend is elected the chair for the Carver Select Board, and as such, I'll turn this over to you to elect a vice chair.
Well, thank you. I'd just like to thank everybody for their confidence in me. Are there nominations for vice chair of the Carver Select Board?
All right, I'll nominate Sarah Hewins for vice chair.
I'll second that.
Second that. Go ahead.
All right, we have a nomination and a second. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, all in favor of Sarah Hewins for vice chair?
Aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Next on our agenda this evening is citizens' participation. I see no citizens out there, so we will move right along to the request for civil service list. Chief? Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me as always. Congratulations, Mr. Carter. And,
Thank you, sir.
And thank you, everybody, for giving me a few minutes tonight. As we just saw at town meeting, we have voted to come out of civil service, which I think is an important step moving forward, but it's still going to take some time for that to happen. Probably 9 months to a year before the legislature acts on it and we get that done. In the meantime, we've also approved the FY23 budget, which includes another new position in the police department, as we've just talked before about starting to bring one every year for the next 3 years to make sure that we have some people on board to help us get through the retirements that are coming in 2025. So with that said, I was hoping to ask the board for its continued support and to authorize us to move forward on the hiring process, calling for the civil service list or seeing if there are any civil service employees, police officers in other towns that would want to try to lateral over to the department. But this board is the appointing authority, so I'm here tonight to request your permission to move forward on that.
All right. Any questions from the board? Yeah, hearing none. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? It is unanimous.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
We appreciate your continued
Mr.
support.
Chair, since we have someone on Zoom, aren't we supposed to take a roll call?
Yep, you are correct. I believe those hybrid rules still apply. That is correct. So, Mr. Hoffman?
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Bogart says aye.
And Mr. Cotter?
John Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. And just quickly, Mr. Fennessy, is there any way to contact our legislators and ask them to move that item along, to remove us from civil
So the
service?
The first thing that we're doing is getting the certification of the votes.
Okay,
And then that's sent with a letter to Mark Pacheco, and Senator Mark Pacheco and Representative Gifford, and then they will submit it to the board. Well, we'll ask them to try and move it through quickly.
okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Is there anything else this evening?
No, appreciate your help and your support. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Can I just ask you, there's one item on the town administrator update, Chief, while you're here, the King Richard's Fair traffic update. I wonder if the board would allow us to take that one item out of order, and maybe that way, if you have anything to add to what Mr. Fennessy has to say, we could get that. Any issues with that, folks?
No, I think that's a
All
good
right.
idea.
So, Mr. Fennessy.
So you may recall that after last year, there was a big issue with the traffic going to and from the King Richard's Fair. It caused tie-ups. There was some concern about emergency vehicles even getting through if they needed to. So they formed a task force, it's called the King Richard's Fair Traffic Issues Working Group, to look into the matter and see if there's a way that the town can get them to make changes, get a traffic plan put together, a study and a plan. During that time, there was a number of meetings that were held, and you can get into this a little more. Ultimately, they were balking at paying for a study, thinking that they could come up with an idea of how to cone off the area and move the traffic better. We held that they have to get a study done by a professional. Because no matter what happens, if something happened, we'd be on the hook of getting sued, not them, because it's our streets. So we got an email recently, I think yesterday, saying they are in negotiations with Ganas company to do a traffic study, and they'll have to pay for that. So if you want to talk a little bit about how that built up.
So since our meeting one night, we talked about the problems we had with the board and the vote that was taken that night. We did conduct several meetings, two or three meetings now, with them by FaceTime, by Zoom, because they're in California. And while they are cooperative to an extent, obviously there's an expense to this, and there's probably a future expense to coning the road and to taking the actions that the study would require. So I can understand their hesitation, but we've given them, they asked me to get 3 companies. We sought out 3 companies. 2 of them gave us bids. 1 declined at the last minute. They've interviewed both companies, and we're kind of waiting on them to make a decision on which company. They've had some input in this, and we've let them, talk to the companies and pick a company. But at the end of the day, it's my belief that the town of Carver would be remiss in not having a professional traffic plan prepared for this event, especially if we see traffic like we did last time, because while we've coned off the road before for short distance and found some success in that, it sounds to me like to deal with those numbers, we're going to be coning off more of the road. And as we do that, I think we increase the risk of some type of a traffic accident occurring. A cone getting hit by accident, hitting somebody's windshield, causing a collision. And when that happens, there will be a lawsuit, because there always is. And I believe that we'll be held liable for us putting the cones out there without having a traffic plan. Years back, Massachusetts enacted the same standards as the federal government. Anytime you're going to put cones in the road for a construction zone or anything like that, they have to be according to a traffic plan, to a study. An engineer has to do it. And I believe that that's what we need to hold the fair too. Again, we're not looking to try to make the fair not be in business, but I think if they're going to be in business and their traffic is going to impact the residents and the drivers in Carver, we have to hold them responsible for that. So we're working on that now. They have agreed that they're meeting, a call tomorrow with the less expensive company, I think, and hopefully they will make a decision on that. We had talked back then about making sure there was some money for them to pay for this and making the fair pay for it. I think we've got to open that discussion up a little bit further and make sure that the town pays for it and gets reimbursed by the fair, because this traffic study, if the fair pays for it, will work for the fair and will, they'll be the ones that's driving the bus instead of the town driving the bus. So I believe that we should make sure that at the end of the day, the town is in charge of it and the plan is submitted to us for approval. We thought at the beginning might have to be submitted to Mass DOT because 58 is a state highway, but that portion of it is controlled by the town, not by the state. So it would be final approval through the town, but it would be a professional plan based on a professional engineer who's insured. And if there is some type of issue, God forbid, that liability would go to the deep pockets and their insurance company, hopefully rather than the town. I'm sure the town would be included in the lawsuit, but at least we would be able to back it up with, this wasn't just my idea or your idea or somebody's idea. It was based on a plan from an engineer, and I think that we need to stick to that. I don't think we're asking too much. You know what I mean? I really don't. And I think it's the most prudent decision we can make as far as the town moving forward.
Thank you. And I think it's really important that we try to take some action there, because there's a lot of citizens, that people live down there, that have to be able to get through, and it's not fair that they sit for an hour in traffic every Saturday or Sunday trying to get to their homes. So thank you for moving this forward. Any questions from the board? Ms. Ewens?
I just have a quick one, Chief. What was the name of the company they chose? King Richard's Fair chose?
Van Ness Associates.
Okay, thank you.
They're the same company that handles Gillette.
Oh.
One of the questions that came up with this when we were talking was the two companies that bid, one does Gillette, one does Xfinity, and one of the points that was brought up was that, well, why do we need somebody that does such a big venue? And my reaction is that it's not the size of the venue, it's their ability to take a small few lane road and get 65,000 people in. We need to take a small 2-lane road and get 5,000 or 6,000 people in. Not the same numbers, I agree, but still the same problem, trying to fit more cars in a small space as best we can. So I believe that that's why it's not, I rely on their expertise, because they are handling much bigger programs, but I believe their expertise will be valuable to the town in making the best use of the road that we have. So
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Anyone?
Quick
Mr. Carter?
Quick question for you, Mr. Chair. Just so I understand, we're getting an outside consultant to come in and come up with a layout that's more efficient for the King Richard's Fair. But when it comes right down to it, isn't it really though the police and fire that dictates what the lanes will be like in the end? Or is it something that we have to get input from the fair on?
Chief, I'll let you.
So it's a great question, Mr. Carter, and yes, so when it comes down to it, that's why I would like the town to be the one paying the bill with then getting reimbursed by the fair, because if we're the client, then we definitely do that. If we're not the client, the plan will probably be the same, but the fair will be more in a controlling factor on that. So I think it behooves the town to find a way to pay the bill and then get reimbursed by the fair, so that we're the ones making the decisions. It does come down to what police and fire need, but we're basing the best use of that road, or the width of that road, on a professional engineer's opinion on that, how we can get traffic through there most efficiently.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you very much, Chief. I appreciate you updating us on that.
Thank you. Thanks for everybody's support again.
All right. Next item is openings on boards of committees. This is a listing of openings available on June 30th for appointment. I believe you have that in your packet. Are there any questions on that?
Well, I guess I'd have one question that would have gone into the next one but is appropriate now. Are the positions really only open when there's a vacant one, or June 30th when these terms end and the people are up for reappointment? Is it kind of expected that that member will be reappointed if he or she wants to be? Like, what are the the odds or statistics of someone new applying for a position and getting appointed to that board or committee if, you know, a standing member wants to be reappointed.
Well, I'll let Mr. Fennessy, obviously some of these are town administrator appointments, so I'll let him answer as well. But when I look at this list of appointments, a number of them, there are available appointments right now. There's several here that have openings right now, so people don't even have to wait till June 30th.
Right.
My only thought, and every case is different, but if you have somebody that's been on that board, a number of these boards require some experience, and the person who's been on that committee obviously has some experience, so someone new may not, and that may enter into someone's thoughts. And Mr. Fennessy, I'll defer to you for some thoughts.
Yeah, you're correct. So what I would do if somebody applies for a position that some sitting committee member is already in and is up for reappointment, I would look at that person and see if there's any issues that that person shouldn't be reappointed, but give them preference for that position because they've already been on it. Now, some of them, some committees are less intense, where you don't really need the background information, where that might be time for a change. But most of them, like you just said, Chairman, that they build up a ability to sit on that board because they're learning as they go along. And I think, Sarah, you made a comment at town meeting that sometimes it takes a year and a half to get up to.
Yeah, it's called institutional knowledge, historical knowledge. I mean, yeah, sometimes it takes a while to really get up to speed.
So yes and no, I guess is the answer. Yes, they'll get preferential treatment if they're on that board, but no, if somebody else wants to apply, they can, and I'd weigh them both and see what's in the best fit for that committee or that commission, and hopefully pick the right person.
Just because, I mean, so there's kind of like an unwritten, unofficial lifetime appointment then, if I'm hearing things correctly.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
No?
It's not a lifetime position. It's preferential treatment, a preference.
Yeah.
Not preferential. I guess preference to that person because they sit on there and they've got that experience.
Yeah, because I can just, I mean,
You know?
next item we see committees can't be filled. Well, if, I don't know, I kind of put myself in someone else's shoes. If there's a board or committee I want to be on, and yeah, it's full now, but oh wow, in June I have a chance. If I know that the person up for reappointment is really probably gonna get it, you know, if they want to be reappointed again, it might be discouraging to try. So like, why even bother trying if there's someone there that wants to continue, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a,
But that
it's a
other
struggle.
person would want it too, equally.
Yeah.
You know, so why wouldn't they want to apply for it for the reappointment?
And if I may interject, sometimes a person who's been doing it for a while decides to move on, and a new person comes in who might have background, never having been on the committee, but other kinds of background that would inform them. So I mean, it's just not an automatic reappointment. But again, like I said at town meeting, why wouldn't you want someone who had the knowledge to do this?
Well, sometimes I see value in fresh blood. I mean, take myself for example. When I moved here, I started joining committees within 6 months of moving here. Fresh faced on a lot of things. And when I joined one, I got experience in that, but then I would pivot and do something else. And you got to start somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I see where experience can happen, but I do see where it could be problematic, at least in appearance. If people assume, oh, that committee's full, I have to wait for someone to resign rather than let me wait for their reappointment because it's a, you know, if there's preferential treatment. So I understand apprehension from someone's viewpoint of difficulty getting on a committee, you know.
You know,
Mr. Hoffman.
the other thing that I want to bring in the equation is a lot of times if nobody has applied to the town administrator, the person whose term is expiring finds out and says, all right, I'll do it again. Whereas I think with other people, if they know, like, let's say if I was on, just gonna use an example, the Finance Committee, and I've been on for two terms or whatever, and I found, oh, someone else wants to come on, versus there's no one else, well, I might as well put my name in the hat again, versus, oh, there's someone else, good, let's get some fresh blood. Not saying it's gonna happen all the time.
Yeah.
But I know, I see what you're saying, it's kind of discouraging, but if they know that, like I said, the existing member knows, they might just not reapply again. So it can't hurt to do this, and I know we'll get into it in the next discussion, but like you said, I can see both sides of it, but
Right.
I think we have a lot of people that do it, that re-up just because they don't want to see a board that's not filled. Because I know, recreation, I did that a couple times because there was nobody there. It was like, we want to have more than 2 people, so, that type of thing. And
Yeah.
so.
And I know, just speaking from personal experience, and Mr. Cotter, you could speak to this too, but when we were on the Finance Committee, there were times where we were sitting there in Town Hall calling people on the phone saying, hey, we can't meet, we don't have a quorum, can you make the meeting? So that's an important part of all this, and that does, I think there are people who stay because they get asked to stay because people are afraid that they won't have a quorum otherwise. And John, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this.
No, I've been in those shoes, and I think the best scenario, both Jen and Sarah make great points. You need some institutional knowledge with new blood, right? That's the perfect combination. The question is, how do we get there? I mean, as a chairman on the board, I would have loved to see new faces come on board with new ideas. At one point, I was lucky enough to have a wide range of people on the board, and it was refreshing. As a chairman, you want that. I'm all for it. Let's see if we can put in some kind of way to let people know you're welcomed. I don't know if it's a problem if we do have people coming in now saying, hey, I wanted to get on these boards but couldn't because the person, I feel some person got renewed multiple times and I can't get on. Is that something that is prevalent, or have there been people bringing that up?
Well, I've been here since January 1st, and it's never happened. And very rarely do I even get an application for all these openings. We have 21 open seats right now, 3 on the Finance Committee. I never got any come in for the even Finance Committee, which is an important committee.
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's important. 21 open seats, that's the number?
Yep.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm pretty sure it's up there now, but if it isn't, could this sheet be put up there on the website?
oh,
They all are. They're always up.
Okay, well, I knew it had been, I didn't know if this particular layout was up there.
If folks are looking for the list of openings, it's all you have to do is go to the website, go to the select board page, and then there's a committees and boards page where you just click on it and it shows you all the current listings of openings.
And what this listing has is actually the people's names.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you very well again.
Sorry.
Mhm.
On the website, it does list everyone's names who is on the committee and their term when it expires. So you can see, okay, this
Right.
person expires June 30th. And it does say also on that tab that Mark is referring to, you can go to the instructions to apply. And it does say you are more than welcome to apply at any time during the year for a position that's expiring June 30th. And we will hold that application. And when we go to do I'm not even going to call it a renewal,
Right.
the annual appointments, we send a letter out to everyone expiring, and it says you will be considered for reappointment if you notify us
Okay.
that you would like to be considered. So it is not automatic. We do try to leave it open like that because of the perception that people will just automatically get renewed. So we rely on them to get back to us and say, yes, I want to be considered for reappointment.
Great, thank you.
Has this kind of naturally segued into the next section?
It does. So let me just read this. So
Okay.
for the freaks at home,
Sure.
our next agenda item is a discussion on ideas and actions to increase citizens' awareness and understanding of boards and committee openings. And you're right, it does naturally flow. And Ms. Bogart, this
Okay.
is something you asked for.
Yeah, well, I
So-
mean, we've touched upon this for both of the years I've been here. You see that it's a common theme with lots of committees. It was a discussion at town meeting. We've got to do something about it. We've known that. We keep saying we can't fill the boards and committees, yet we're not actually actively trying to. So we've got to do something different. So putting my thoughts together, I asked, why aren't people joining? and it came down to what I thought were three main reasons. One, they're unaware of openings. Two, they don't have the time. And three, maybe they're turned off by like the atmosphere, tension, or feeling they're getting from a board or just the general town feelings. So then I went further and I said, how do we solve that? Guys, I really cared. So I already asked that question. But so number one, and I've mentioned it before, a lot of this is, I've mentioned before, I'll try not to say that, but I think we need to update the town website to make it more user-friendly to navigate, because, what I just heard was go on the town website, go to the select board webpage, then click boards and committees, then one of your choices here is the master list of appointed things. That's a whole bunch of clicking that if I want to get involved in the town, how the heck am I going to know that? Like, I'm not going to go in there and be like, how can I, that's like 4 or 5 steps. So if you go to our town website, and I'm so happy we have the computers today, but if you just go to our town website, you'll see on the left, there's that blue box with 9 shortcuts in it. Town meeting, public records, online payments, bylaws, employment opportunities, assessor, minutes, forms, and community electricity. There just so happens to be one more space. There could be a 10th little link right there. And I think that's the perfect place for a boards and committees page or shortcut. You go right there, and right there on the main page, it's, wow, okay, I want to know about that. So you click that. That's great. And I thought was when you click there, it brings you to a different page. Let me actually go to the Duxbury one. I want to do this right. Okay, if you go to the Duxbury website, right on their main page, there's a shortcut that says employment and volunteering. And then if you click that, it opens a new page where it mentions the board and committee volunteers. They call it a talent bank form, which I think is what you were describing, Elaine, and the application and appointment process. And they describe something just like what you said. If there are no openings, the terms of the boards do expire on June 30th. They explain it. It's much more user-friendly, much more citizen accessible. And I liked them calling it a talent bank too. I thought that was just very friendly and upbeat. But so back to our town website. So if we use that little 10th spot there for, boards and committees overview, I'm not married to any of these titles, then it would open to another page, and on that page it would have like a brief opening that just describes the importance of volunteering for a town and how important the citizens are to running the town. And I know on the Open Space and Recreation Committee, when we sent out the survey, at the beginning of the survey, there was a little paragraph letting people know why this survey was important and why we really needed you to fill it out, because it really steers the direction of things. So on this page, you go there, and it's not just list. We'll get to the list. But you get there, and it's like, wow, this is actually important. I didn't realize that me, as a citizen sitting at home at my computer, I could actually impact the finances of the town. Or I can get involved with recreation or one of the 67 others that people keep saying we have. But you emphasize the importance right there, because I'm not seeing that anywhere, and that's huge. You wouldn't think of that. You think of volunteering board, whatever, but it's impactful. We are just all volunteers. So that would be the top of my new little page. Not little. And then under that, I would suggest it would say the following boards and committees currently have openings, and then list them, just the names. And it could be like the paper that we were given, just the committee names. So you're here, this is why it's important. Here are the 10 committees that currently have openings. Then right after that should be a link to the application, right there. So again, user-friendly. Here's why it's important. I can get on this right now. Here's how I get on it. Then below that should be something kind of like a who they are and what they do kind of master list of a committee. And I think I've seen it on our website somewhere else, but again, it's not popping out. It's not right there. So I'd love to see each committee or board listed with like 1 or 2 sentences of what it does. So if someone asks, what does the Conservation Commission do? You know, I've had someone ask me that, and like, I know what they do, but I tell well, how much time do you have for me to like explain it? Because I don't know a 1 or 2 sentence summary. And there are so many other ones. You know, what's the difference between recreation and the trails and stewards? They kind of seem like they blend. What's capital outlay versus fine? Like, you just don't know. So having a list of each committee with 1 or 2 sentences, oh, I could be a good fit there. Or, oh, that interests me. I didn't know that was an option. Just very basic, all in one place. And then I thought, doing that, maybe put the most well-known boards and committees, like the Select Board, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, Finance Commission, or Committee, School Committee, and ZBA at the top, because those are just the most well-known. Explain what they are. It's not like some, you know, Select Board, Planning Board don't always have openings, but we'll explain to people, this is what they do. And then below that, go alphabetical. And again, it's what is the blank committee. So 1 or 2 sentences of what it does, maybe state how often it meets, and then a link to that committee's page on the website if they have their own. Because again, I've been asked multiple times, what does that committee do? How often do they meet? I don't always have the answers. So I'd love to be able to direct that person. Go to the main page, click that, you'll find everything right there. Thoughts? I mean, I'm going to keep going, but I don't want to like, I like conversations with us. So like, do you guys think I'm on the right track? Like, do you at least see the space on the main page that I'm talking about?
Thoughts from the board?
Well, conceptually, I think it makes sense. I'm a little leery to jump out of this Zoom meeting and try to search online because I might lose you all. But I think absolutely having one focal point. I like the idea of the planning board, the select board. You know, starting off first describing what those committees are like. I think it's a great idea.
Thank you.
Yep. And of course, some of the planning board and select board are elected. They're not
Right.
appointed, so.
But at least explain what it, because they do have alternates. Like, alternates aren't,
On planning board, yeah, that's
right.
true. Mhm.
So, because when we were on at one point, didn't we not have an alternate? And then,
Yep.
and then I think Kara Dayhill joined, and then Kelly did at one point. So there are opportunities to be involved. But just let people know that. Like, you have no idea. Just, it's more user-friendly. Again, if it's about knowing, right here I'm on the main page. I see nothing about how I, Jen Bogart, resident, can do anything. So that's the start. And again, I feel like it's reasonable. And seeing that spot, I was like, bing, perfect.
So, Mr. Chair, I think the discussion of the website is really important. And I have a lot of stuff I wanted to say about it as well, but I don't know whether it needs a separate topic at a later date, or does it come under the technology upgrade?
Yeah, there's another item, and I was going to say perhaps when we get to that, we can talk about it a little bit more, because I think it probably would fit under that agenda item a little bit better. But
I think what Mrs. Bogart is talking about is very important. When there's just a
think it
lot
is.
of things, and bear in mind, no one in this town hall created the website.
And I can't create one. You know,
All
not
I'm
an
saying is
expert.
no one here is to blame for any
No, I'm not
deficiencies. That's all
blaming.
I'm saying.
I didn't say rehash it. I just said there's an opportunity right there
Yep.
to make this one
And I
thing
agree.
user friendly. And that's why I dove into this, because the main topic is we're talking about how to get people to fill it. Awareness. That's where this comes in, was awareness on the website. And I just kind of went further to figure out how could awareness be increased. So that's why, not necessarily a technological update, but I was really trying to flesh out my ideas
Well, the
this time.
technology would
Yeah.
actually help.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's not me. You know, I got ideas I can't always execute. But then two, there on the committee's each web page, it lists the members, but I think there it should also list when that term is up. So that could be another place for people to see, oh, look, that person is up now. And other towns do that too. I was looking at other towns. I'm not rewriting the book here. So again, making it more user-friendly. Oh, hey, look, that person's up, even if it's all June 30th. It's just to let people know. Awareness. So I thought that could kind of change and help too. Yeah, that's kind of website-y stuff. So So that's my website awareness part. And guys, please jump in. I like the conversations. I've always said that.
I think one of the things that we do, whether it's website or anything else we choose, we have to make it as simple as possible. Because I know Elaine's explained to me and Shelby has where to find it online. So I've done that. But people that just go to the website and don't see it and they just give up.
Yeah.
I mean.
No, I agree, and that's
I
one of the
don't want to
reasons.
keep picking on the website part, but anything else that we do, we have to make it as simple as possible.
Oh,
Because,
no,
you know, people's attention span isn't what it used to be, and if they can't find it in the first 30 seconds, wherever they look.
Yeah, and it's not picking on it.
No.
It's noticing a problem and trying to figure out how to make it better.
That's exactly right. You identify, you learn from your problems, and you make them better. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So.
So that's kind of the website portion. Then, okay, social media is the bane of our existence, but it can also be a good resource. I think we need to use it more because I don't have our website traffic statistics, but I would bet that more people go on Carver Helping Carver and Everything Carver on a daily basis than they do carverma.gov. Call me crazy. I just feel like they do. And the town Facebook page too. That's more visible. And again, that's more snippet. You say make it simple. You're on Facebook, you can do one thing. Click here for openings. But I had ideas there too for social media so as to not get just repetitive and boring.
No, just so you're aware,
Yeah.
I do normally almost every month when we get the list from Town Hall,
Mhm.
put them on Carver, Helping Carver, and Everything Carver. So
Yes,
it's
and
out there. But
So
and I think Bob used to do that as well. So
yeah, but to make it interesting too, I thought once a month we could post something on the town Facebook page and then share it to, anything local. Something like the following boards and committees currently have openings. List them just by title. Click here for more information and how to apply. And that would be a link to that new fancy web page we created that we just talked about. Then once a month, we post something about the importance of citizen involvement, just to get people fired up. I'm all about a good quote. So you get a good quote, a good picture, it just inspires you. It's attention grabbing. We're all about grabbing attention and piquing interest. So you get a nice little quote, and then something like Carver wouldn't exist without citizen involvement. To learn more about the boards and committees in town and how you can get involved, click here. Again, link to that same page. So kind of being like, hey, you might be interested, come here. I have a PR and marketing background too, so I'm a little bit pulling on that. Then I thought once a month, we could post about a specific committee, like a different committee each week. Highlight it. So the people that aren't at the website reading those 1 or 2 sentence descriptions get exposed to a committee once a week. Did you know that the finance committee, and then put like a really interesting factoid that they do? Because some of our committees might sound drab, but hey, did you know they do this? And that's an exciting thing. To learn more about the finance committee, click here. And again, it brings us to our website. It's about generating traffic and interest. And if we vary the content of the posts, it's more attention grabbing. So I think that could help too. Again, just getting attention. It's a little more exciting than here are our openings. Check it out. You want to grab attention and variety. So there's that. But I know that social media is like, oh God, the drama of it. And I'm not suggesting we get a Twitter and an Instagram too. Like, I don't have those. But let's capitalize on what we do have. So, like, thoughts there? I don't think I'm like out in left field. I think it's reasonable. We've got a resource. Let's use it.
no, I think it's entirely reasonable. Like I've almost every month I put this stuff out on Carver Helping Carver and Everything
Right.
Carver, and I think the other site as well. I know Bob used to do that on occasion. Maybe some others have done that as well. I don't know. Maybe some other thoughts. Anybody have any?
Well, I think that electronic media is great, social media. Let's make as much use of it as we can. But I guess one of the things that I enjoyed when I was on a committee was some of the seniors that joined, like the finance committee. And I'm just wondering how we can specifically maybe reach out to them. And they're retired. They've got a long life experience. There might be some instances where maybe they feel they can't get to meetings because of not having the ability to get there, but maybe something with Dr. buses that can get people to and from meetings. But I'd love to be able to reach out to more, Council on Aging, Cranberry Village, things, people like that could, like I said, bring their life experiences to work, but maybe they're not, on social media all the time.
Yeah. And I believe most of the villages have their own newsletters, so perhaps we could reach out at some point and include those
That's
those there.
And like the Council on Aging, they have
They have a newsletter as well.
their own Facebook page and newsletter. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That gets it out to a whole new. See, John, this is working already. Look at us.
There you go.
Look at us,
Grow.
guys. We've had unanimous votes already. We're sharing ideas. You'll get to know I'm a little colloquial. But I think that's great. Is somebody taking notes? Should I write this down? That's great
Elaine
Taking
is.
notes.
to reach out to them. Right?
No,
I think it's awesome.
I agree.
So, and then just going back to the Facebook, you can schedule posts too. So it's not like it would be someone's job. Okay, it's Thursday. I have to go do specify committee Thursday. You could spend a day or however long it takes scheduling the, getting to know this committee post, and then just schedule it to post every week for a couple months. So it's like a set it and forget it type deal. It's like a crock pot. So, it wouldn't be that hard of a thing to do or to drop the ball on, because there is that possibility. And again, it's just about getting it out there. Commercials are on every commercial break. You see the same ones. We have to be like a commercial, but not the boring kind you want fast forward. You gotta make them interesting. So there's that. I know the monthly email goes out with the openings too. And again, just kind of making the email more attention grabbing. Start with the couple sentences about the involvement, and then the committee. Just make it seem more exciting. I think that's a big thing. And then my last big point too was maybe we can try to start using outdoor signage when possible to say something just as simple as committee openings, carverma.gov, for people who aren't on the internet or walk in town hall. Like, I don't know if the fire department or the schools would ever put it on intermittently. I mean, we don't need it on all the time, but those boards are there. I don't know, are they a town-wide resource, or are the schools only supposed to use it for school stuff? Can the town approach them? I know at the yard sale, Chief Weston was great to help with that a little last year, but I don't know, what's the separation? Would it be inappropriate for us to ask either of those entities to just add it into a low-key rotation? I don't know.
Yeah, there's not a bar against that.
No?
No, it's up to them, if they want to put it on there.
Okay.
But for the town ones, like the fire station and police station, other places, we, the town, control those.
Okay.
So we can put whatever we ask them to put on. We always put on when there's a town meeting, that it's town meeting time.
Right.
So it's something that, we could obviously do.
Because I didn't know if that wasn't kind of allowed, for lack of better use. There's that even like silly, the basic one, I think it's out there now, about property taxes, fourth quarter due May 2nd. Even just that simple one. Committee openings, carverma.gov, just to get the traffic, people going here who don't go to the website or don't have social media.
I think that's a good idea.
Like, can we get it on a sign? Just basic stuff. So I think there are ways to get it out there. And then, Bob, you mentioned something earlier today about maybe when excise tax bills are sent out, have a tiny little note or something somewhere in there.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how it would do, but that was
You
another
put
idea
an
for
insert in
awareness.
something like that, because it goes out to almost everybody that has cars. And they'll have something about, get involved with your town. And here's the information, and, similar to what you just said about going to, carver.gov and click on the front page or whatever.
Yeah, I think
So,
it's about awareness, and with the exception of like reaching out to the villages and COA, that's great, keeping that offline. About driving traffic to the website, and then keeping it simple, like Jim said too. Get everybody there, hear the details, and then, woo, this looks so much fun. This is important. I can be important and make a difference in my town. So that was kind of reason number one why people aren't joining. Number two, they don't have the time. I don't have a solution for that. I can't go tell people change your jobs, make time in life. The only thought was if we make it more attractive and have people understand it more, maybe they'd be like, oh, you know what? Maybe I can finagle my schedule to be part of that. A lot of times you can't. But so there was that. That was a simpler one. And then number three was the possibility of being turned off by like the atmosphere or tension or conflict within the boards in town. You know, like when you just kind of feel like things are ugly, I don't want to be involved. That one was harder to kind of think of solutions for, because that's not just me, okay, let's update the webpage and say it's fun to be here, we're all nice to each other. But like, we'd be lying to ourselves if we said there weren't kind of tensions on some of the boards. Like, we'd be lying if we said every board was walking in and it's just fun and happy and friendly. So, you know, shortly after I joined, we talked about the code of conduct as related to the select board. And I remember we had a discussion on it, and at that point I didn't really like it, because I felt like you're kind of just telling me this is how you should behave. And I didn't really see the value, not value, but I guess the value in it. Like, it's kind of just a piece of paper that's not enforceable. But since then, over 2 years, I've come to appreciate what it stands for. It's like your personal attestation or acknowledgement of like, listen, I know this is how I should be. I am a professional. I'm in a really important position for the town, and I understand and take that seriously. Chief Weston had said something like that at the recruit graduation on Saturday, when he was talking to the new recruits and said, I hope you know you are now part of the department and you reflect this fire department no matter where you are. So if you're responding to a call, wipe your feet. But even outside of responding to calls, whatever decisions you make, you are reflecting on the fire department. So he has one over there, just kind of like an unwritten, this is the role you stepped into. So my mindset has changed on the code of conduct from a you do this, be good, to more of a personal commitment thing. So I kind of think we should revisit the idea, because we had talked about, do we have it here? Is it applicable to all boards and committees? And maybe just give it to them and just explain, like, listen, guys, we want this to be a place where people want to volunteer and want to work hard. And these are our values. Maybe we can use the word values or something instead of code of conduct. I just see I see it in a different light. And I think that could kind of just tell people, it would remind people on boards and committees, like, I am here for the right reason. I understand that I do represent the town. It's not taking away freedoms and saying you've got to be on your best behavior all the time, but just, you know, I've changed my tune on it. Thoughts?
I think, well, we all evolve, and
Yeah.
and you learn from experience, and I changed I had similar opinions when I first joined the board. My
Yeah.
opinions have changed as well, so. Anything from the board?
No, I just thought the code of conduct wasn't really supposed to be restrictive. It was just supposed to be, let's all respect one another, disagree in a respectful way, and just behave professionally. Because sometimes, sometimes discussions get heated, and, it just reflects poorly on either a board or a committee or whatnot, when, tempers flare say. But yeah, I mean, I think we should definitely, if we want to revisit it, and modify it, but I think having one in place is just, it's self-monitored really, right? It just lets everybody know this is what the expectations are.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. So would you guys be open to bringing it up again and actually involving all the other boards and committees? Because last time we just applied it to ourselves. And someone said, should it go to everyone? And we decided no.
Are you talking about the code of conduct?
Yeah.
It's not on the agenda, though.
Yeah, first of all, it's not on the
That's not-
agenda.
that's-
Oh, it was
Not on the
part
agenda
of.
at
Oh, here's
all.
how I tied it, and we can stop. But this is how I tied it in. So it was the joining the committees, and my number 3 was people might be turned off by the atmosphere.
Okay.
So that's
I think that's more of a specific conversation that maybe
Okay.
we should have at another
Yeah.
time. 'Cause I
Okay.
think when we start talking about other boards and committees, they
And
might
so-
like
and-
to be
And
involved
some
in
of
that
them are
discussion.
elected too, so.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
not,
again, it was just going back to filling openings. So kind of, in general, we keep saying we can't fill the boards. We can't get it. There's open seats. And people say, maybe there's too many boards and committees. Maybe yes. But I haven't seen us do anything to try to change that. So the biggest thing is awareness. And I think I've given some examples of how we can at least try. And it's not like we do this and they're going to fill up like that. But people aren't going to leave boards and committees because we try to do this stuff.
I think that's a good point, and I think Mr. Fennessy, perhaps yourself and Ms. Weston can do a little brainstorming on this, and maybe we can revisit this after a couple of meetings and see where we go. And I just want to make the board aware, I'm not trying to limit discussions in any way,
I know.
but just so everyone knows, there is another meeting in this room at 7 o'clock. That's why we're meeting at 5. And we've fallen a little bit behind our agenda here, so just so we know.
Well, but that's the thing, like, we've talked multiple times about we've got to do something about it, and I saw a chance we can actually have the conversation, instead of
No.
once again saying, we've
And
got to let more people know without having the conversation.
I think it was an
So,
excellent conversation to have, and I think we had brought up a
Yeah.
lot of good points, and
when I saw 10 minutes, I was like, oh, God. I don't know, that's 10 minutes.
no, and that's fine, we can go on as long as we want. I just
Yeah.
want everyone to know that there's
Yeah.
another meeting here at 7
Well,
o'clock,
and
so
I think I've made my point and we fleshed it out more. But I think we got to take action, and I hope this is the next step to doing so, because I do think we can do things to recruit or make it known and interesting.
I-
So.
I agree. Any more discussions on this thing? Mr. Carter, anything to add?
I'm good.
All right. Our next item is a discussion on the town's drug and alcohol policy, specifically about possession use on town property.
Okay, here, this was me too. Okay. So I'll try to keep this brief and kind of make it even simpler, because I guess it's not clear what I was talking about. In a nutshell, we've had to deal with stuff since I've been on the board that had to do with alcohol on town premises. And there was ambiguity as to how to deal with it and what constituted an issue. So I would like us to talk about and make a decision on how to regulate it in the black and white. Make it clear.
So I think some of this has already been discussed, and perhaps it's gone back and forth. Ms. Weston, we had some discussions about bringing it to the, what is the official name of the committee? It's yourself, Mr. Walsh, and,
The Personnel Committee.
and Carol Julius, correct?
Yeah.
And 'cause I know there was some ambiguity in that. I don't have the bylaw or the wording in front of me, but it was, if you had permission of the town administrator or
Authorized use.
authorized use from the town administrator, and I 100% agree with you. I don't think there should be any alcohol use in town hall, not with the permission of the town administrator, the permission of the select board, the permission of anybody. And that should apply to elected officials, employees, members of boards, members of committees, anyone that has anything to do in town hall. And that has to be very clear. In fact, I would go so far to say that when people join a board of committee, I think there should be a copy of the town's drug and alcohol policy attached to the application for the board or committee, and there should be a sign-off sheet, so people acknowledge that drug and alcohol policy, so nobody in the future can ever say, well, I didn't know, or I wasn't aware, or whatever. So I think you and I are 100% in agreement here.
going back to Duxbury, again, I don't know, they had a good website. They were easy to navigate. So they have their alcohol and drug policy. One of the statements says, no alcoholic beverages will be brought into or consumed upon town premises. Maybe you don't go premises because we do the one-day licenses. Maybe we specify it to town hall, you know? But, yeah, something very clear like that. What can we do to address it and like make it right now or as fast as possible?
Very clear, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Fennessy, Ms. Weston, you're in the process of getting some wording and going back and forth with town council as to see what we
Yes.
can, what we can do, or what's legal, and, you know,
And not
what's-
just with employees, but like you said,
I-
board and
So
committee,
the-
everybody, like,
So the policy that we have now is 8 years old, 2014. So the town council is working on a new policy, not only for our town, but for many towns, that reflect both the changes in marijuana use and other things. So I've been going back and forth with Greg on this and Tim, trying to get a draft policy for the board to look at.
but it'll apply to everyone, not just
Right.
like town
Right.
employees
No,
who,
town employees,
come
committee
every day.
members, commission members, yep,
okay,
anybody with dealings in the town.
okay. And it could be just as black and white as like Mark said, just no alcohol in
As
here.
black and white as possible. As far as I'm concerned, it should be as black and white as possible.
Is that in the intention of the conversations? Is that kind of
Yeah,
what you're
and
doing?
again, they're looking at different policies for a draft. So
Right.
obviously, the Board of Selectmen will discuss it and then make a decision on what they want to have in it and what they want to strike. So it's not a one fits all, you know, so.
Right, because I know in the past, Bob Belvin, just at the last meeting, he's brought up in the past, he doesn't like the idea of alcohol being used anywhere on town property. I know he brought up an issue at the COA and stuff. So I didn't know if we wanted to talk about that, but I know personally, like, one-day licenses I'm fine with, but personally, just clearing things up in this building, I think is important.
Why don't we talk about, I think that's an important discussion as well, but why don't we have one discussion at a time, just so
Yeah.
everybody, is there any thoughts from other members of the board on this? Mr. Cotter, anything?
No, I mean, there's always reasons to, you know, celebrate whether someone gets a promotion or someone gets, you know, whatever they do, you know, agreements, things like that, but that's why you can go across the street to St. Mammi's or go someplace else and toast someone.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure what the need would be to have the alcohol on premises, so I think that, yeah, you know, I'd rather err on the side of caution.
I agree 100%. I think we have pretty good agreement among this board on that. And I think as far as what you're discussing, which is what Mr. Belvin brought up about the COA, and I forget exactly who the organization was, but that was,
Right.
that was somebody who was renting the space, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they go out, they get the one-day license, they get insurance.
That's correct. And then,
So-
they get their own insurance, so it's not on the town.
Right, so that's,
Right. Yeah, so
That's-
there's no town liability.
there's-
I
yeah.
didn't have an issue with the one-day license thing, bring it up discussion, but yeah, it was more doing stuff here,
Yeah, I
so,
think we're
great.
in agreement.
Do you have any idea when that might, like, be brought to us?
I got an initial draft that they're reworking, so probably next week.
Oh, cool, great,
Soon. We will get it on the agenda as soon as we can.
awesome.
Anything else on that? All right, moving right along. The Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District,
No, you
SERPED.
skipped me. You
I
skipped
did?
the yard sale.
I'm sorry, I did skip the yard
No,
sale.
I'm a
Discuss-
trifecta tonight.
Discussion on the second annual townwide yard sale, including possible dates. And I did look up, last year's date was June 26th.
First of all, the fact that there's a second annual townwide yard sale is exciting, because when I brought it up last year, I remember presenting it as proof of concept. Start small, see how it's received. And you know, I gave a recap. It was received well. People asked for a fall one. Whoa, slow down. And I've been getting emails to my town email account for probably 2 months, at least one a week, with people asking if we're doing it, if a date has been picked.
I've
Like,
had a number of people reach out to me as well about that.
yeah, so I've always written back, I hope so. I hope we talk about it soon, and, you know, keep my fingers crossed. So that's exciting. So I guess we'll start with with, do we want to pick a date? I think last year I picked like the last weekend before July 4th or something, before the summer started and everyone went on vacation, but
I went back and looked at my notes about last year's yard sale, and I
Yeah.
think there were a couple of concerns. And the reason we didn't do one in the fall
Yeah.
was we were concerned about a conflict with, perhaps in some along the King Richard's Fair traffic route, that might cause an issue. And I think hearing from the chief earlier about some of those issues, that's probably a valid
yeah.
concern. Last year, we did it, like I said, it was June 26th. Looking at my calendar this year, there's, the last Saturday in June is June 25th, which is a day off. So maybe June 25th is a good possible date.
Yeah. Follow-up question would be, some of the feedback I got last year was having it 2 days, a whole weekend, Saturday, Sunday, letting people choose to participate one day or both days. Yeah, I'm not coming here with everything. I'm bringing back feedback from last year. I kind of like just having the one day, because I think adding a weekend complicates it.
I
Some of
agree.
it was, well, what if it rains on Saturday? We could still do it Sunday, and I'm kind of like, rain or shine, like that stinks. So,
You can always have a rain date, June 25th, rain date 26th.
You could do it in January, you just might not get as
Right.
much participation.
I'm expecting a warm January.
so, okay, so then keep it at the one day. That's,
I don't know, my thoughts are
Yeah.
the one day. I mean, if somebody wants to have a yard sale
Right.
both days, there's no reason they can't do it.
yeah,
Um,
just won't be the townwide one, yeah,
yeah,
sure,
I think you should have a rain date the next day.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 'cause that, okay,
That's just me.
yeah.
Yeah.
That just goes with the promotion, like when people are signing up, if there's gonna be a rain date, then we just need to get across the fact that if it rains on Saturday, we would expect them to do it on Sunday, because we don't wanna put out this list and map and tell people it's gonna happen on Sunday, and they drive around and these people aren't there.
And that would be my concern with that is obviously, some people may look at a rain date and think, well, you need rain.
Right,
Other people you may get a little bit of a shower and that's rain. I don't know. I don't think there's any way the town could possibly get the word out to people.
right, yeah.
And I'm not sure we want to be the arbiter of what constitutes a
Right.
rain
How
out.
much
So,
rain is, yeah, too
um,
much rain.
but I'm open to whatever the board.
Well, as long as people don't mind having their things rained on. I
Yeah.
mean,
I mean, and looking in other towns, it's kind of, a lot of towns have one day events, some had two, but it's kind of the luck of the draw with everything. You pick a day, bummer. If it's pouring, then someone who loves yard sales is gonna know, if I drive around to these 80 places, they're not all gonna be there. There's some
It is,
common
and there's no way, I mean, someone could submit, I think last year we put a list up with the town. Somebody could submit that they're gonna participate, and then they could have a conflict, and they don't participate.
That happened once last year. I drove around to everyone last year, and there was one person who wasn't set up. So, but we're not charging an entrance to this or anything, so it's not like if it's $25 and it rains, someone could say, come on, I paid and it rained and no one came. So there's none of that. So I'm fine with the one day thing. I think last year we checked with both chiefs to make sure that they didn't have anything.
I think we did, and I think if we come up with a date, we should probably do that again. We should check with the chiefs to make sure there's no conflicts. Ms. Weston, there was a process to putting this list and everything together last year, I think. Am I wrong, or
I did it all.
you did it all?
I was a one-woman show.
Are you willing to head it up again this year? Is
Yeah.
that something you're willing to do?
And the biggest thing to get there too is this year, there needs to be an interactive map. I had hoped to have one last year. I didn't get to it. That was the biggest feedback too as I visited people. They said, we'd love a map. People came asking for a map, and I've seen them online. So there'd be a map online, and this is where I'd need help or find someone to do it. Map of Carver, and we put a little pinpoint every place there's a yard sale, and when you click on that, a little box pops up with the little description of what they sell. Like I had it on my paper, so you click on it and it says 1234 Main Street, baby items, women's clothes. And you do that for each thing, and then people can see where in Carver it is and what's being sold. In addition to the physical list. But having the interactive map that would be huge this year.
Well, I mean, I think that's something we could, that's certainly above my technology pay
Yeah.
grade. But, is the board, does anyone have an issue with that particular date? June 25th, Saturday, June 25th? So why don't we, is there a motion to have the townwide yard sale on June 25th, subject to checking with the police and fire chiefs to make sure there's no conflict?
I'll make that motion.
I'll
Second.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Hoffman? We need the roll call vote.
Jim Hoffman, aye.
Ms. Ewens?
Sarah Ewan says aye.
Mark Townsend's aye, says aye.
Jen Bogart, aye?
Ron Goddard says aye.
All right, it is unanimous.
Okay,
Thank you.
I know I'm trying to keep to time, but
Yep,
again, this
fine.
is, okay, so, last year, feedback too. A lot of people were saying they wish they had signs, and this is something common in other towns too, and I talked to Bob about it too. Basic yard signs that people can put up in their yard like the week before. Townwide yard sale participant. You put it up, so as people are driving around, oh, I know that townwide yard sale's on Saturday, those people are gonna be there. It's all about awareness. A lot of people said they'd love that. So in thinking about it, thought it would be great for somehow signs to get made, and then anyone who wants one could buy it at cost. And I talked to Bob about if the town could do that. Could the town buy signs and then sell them at cost so there'd be no profit? But then there was the issue and jump in of like money exchanging and us being
Yeah,
involved.
That'd be a mess.
Right.
Yeah.
So he nixed that, but then
So I think what I suggested is
Yeah.
you set up with some sign maker, and they can go down and buy a sign from that vendor.
That's a great, so it's a
Yeah.
private transaction
private
between the
between
person
the
having the
person
yard
and
sale
the-
and the person making the sign. That's a good idea.
but then have some standard design so every yard sale participant
Mhm.
has the same one, so it's clear
Yeah.
we're participating in the townwide yard sale.
Yeah, and that's something probably whoever was making the sign could help with, because they're probably better at laying out signs, I would assume, than
Right.
than we are, but.
But that was feedback. You guys
No, I think
like
that's-
that?
If,
got a problem with
if people are willing to pay for the signs, I see no issue with it.
And it would take us out of the equation if we had someone else do
Right.
it. Just let them know when you sign up, if you're interested in a sign, go speak to blah blah company. My question to him was, would there be any sort of conflict of interest if we just kind of picked a sign company to work with? Like,
No,
you don't need the
Don't need to get
RFP or
3,
no. because
Verbal
it's
quotes?
Way under the,
oh, okay,
you know,
It's under
signs are probably
procurement.
$5 a
Yeah.
piece.
okay.
And it's optional, you're not
Yeah,
telling
you're not
people
telling
to do
them.
it, we can't predict the quantity that's going to be sold.
There could be one, could be 100,
Yeah.
who knows?
I just
So-
didn't want us to look bad if it's like, oh, why did they have it go with that? As long as, no appearance of anything weird. So, okay, that'd be great. That would be
Can I
another
make
step
a
up.
suggestion? Just a suggestion, if you are going to put that out there, maybe contact as many local sign companies that you know, maybe preferential to in town.
Yeah.
And have them give quotes.
Yeah.
Or you could just recommend all three and give the same template to all three, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
That way you're not favoring any type of business.
Yeah. So, to step it up with the signs would be an improvement. Another idea to ruminate on this, if we need to skip ahead in the agenda and come back to
No,
this,
go
that's
ahead,
fine.
go ahead.
But, again, in making it bigger and better, cause it proved to be good, something I discussed last year was Rutland, the town I used as an example. You can have it at your house, but you could also, there was a community space on the town common that a limited number of people could sign up for a space, first come, first serve. And we had talked about maybe bringing that in and making it bigger and better. This year having that, and last year some people did say they would like that, because there were two people specifically who lived on a main road and said, I don't think I was as successful as I could be because people couldn't park here. I wasn't in a good place. I want to participate, but my address just isn't viable for a successful yard sale. that if I was in a central location, I would gladly come do it. So, thinking in that, I mean, I know Shirtlift Park has the farmer's market, but it's like a little uneven in there. It might be tricky to do yard sale stuff there. I didn't know if a school parking lot would be a good idea, if you guys would even want to step it up that much this year.
I
think one of the issues we had with that was picking up people leaving some of their stuff there and not bringing it all home. And then what would we do with it if it was at the school or Shirtlift Park? Then who would be responsible for cleaning that up?
Yeah.
You know, and we don't know what the school, whether they have conflicts or don't
That's
have
right.
conflicts, or, you could probably have a conversation with Scott Neef if you wanted to, but I don't.
Is it even worth pursuing? Are you guys even interested in adding that component this year? If we're not, then we don't have to this year.
I guess
But-
being in the insurance business, whenever I think about that, I think about a liability issue, and, you know, I would hate to think of somebody driving through a parking lot and having something happen, or having a child. I don't know. Personally, I'd rather see people just do it at their homes,
Yeah.
but.
Because I envision it kind of being like Carver Night Out. You know, you drive in, the first set of the parking lot is parking, then the back is where people can set up their stuff. And if you do it, you know, you mathematically plan, you know, 2 spaces worth. You have these 2 spaces to set up in. Then there's a blank. Then you have these 2 spaces. So it's calculated very specifically how many people can sign up and where it goes. It's not a free-for-all flea market. It would be very methodical. And it was successful in other towns. And it was feedback I got. So I'd love to see that happen eventually. Maybe not this year, but I'd like us to not be closed-minded about it. So,
Any thoughts from the board?
I think maybe something down the line. That's a good idea. I just think for this year, just
Might take a little
continue on,
plan.
yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, hey,
Anyone else?
the fact that this is a second year opens the door for more discussion. And then the third thing
Yeah,
is
let's
just, yeah, sorry.
So I'm just saying, yeah, let's just see how the second year goes with upping into the sign notifications and whatnot, and see, you know, how much, you might get a lot more traction in the second year. We might need to do something bigger.
Yeah, and then
Mr.
my,
Chair, if I make one
Yeah.
thing, just so that everybody out there knows that this isn't a town-run yard sale, because even our school department contacted me about bringing things over for our town-wide yard sale so they can sell
Okay.
equipment from the school. I said, no, this is a personal homes. They're gonna sell it out of their homes. It's not town-wide that we're running it, so. So this-
townwide, yeah.
you gotta-
Excellent
you
point,
gotta
Mr.
drive to the home.
So it's town-wide, it's not town-run.
That's right,
Yeah.
and there's a confusion there.
But it's like sort of town-sponsored-ish, because we're the ones organizing it. So, there's that component. And then the last big thing I had to talk about for that too, this year, I'd like to figure out a way for more town promotion for signups and for the event day. Kind of goes back to the getting people on committees. Chief Weston was great. Like 2 weeks before the event, he added into rotation townwide yard sale June 26th. So intermittently for at least a week, maybe 2, it would show up there. So we got some street traffic there. That was great. It was invaluable. I don't know if the schools might participate. If Chief Weston does it, maybe the elementary school wouldn't have to, but if the high school would be willing to put it on, then you could get people on South Meadow seeing it. Again, just the little A-frame board out there, getting the word out more than just online. And an idea too, I didn't know if, maybe not this year, but another year, we could get a banner to hang across Main Street if it becomes a thing, like the fire department has for recruiting and stuff. Again, bigger ideas. But for this year, I'd love to see more physical promotion throughout town somehow. So, but with that said, I guess I'm psyched it's happening. It's exciting to have a date. We can look into the signs. And the big thing is the interactive map. So I guess maybe, Bob, I can talk to you about who could help do
Yeah.
it. I mean,
We'll have to find somebody,
I don't
you know. Again, it's
It's over my technology pay grade, so. All right,
So-
all right. Is there anything else from anybody on this item? All right.
So if it's okay, I guess I'll move forward in like the planning of when signups would happen and
Yeah,
gathering the
yep,
forms and stuff.
and Mr. Fennessy, if you could just check with the chiefs to make sure there's
Yeah, I
no,
get that on my
no
list.
conflicts
So
with
just
that.
kind of start the stuff like I did last year.
Yeah.
Okay,
Think so?
cool.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Next item is Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District SERPED Commission appointment. We have a Select Board representative appointment and a Joint Transportation Planning Group representative and alternate appointments. Any thoughts on this? I think last year our appointments were Jim Walsh and Bruce Mackey, if I'm correct.
It was, Bruce Mackey.
Okay, it wasn't Jim Walsh as well?
2 years ago, it was Jim
Oh,
Walsh.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think Tom Bott would be the natural person for this. Any thoughts?
Has it generally been a committee member versus an employee?
I thought, it was, like I said,
I-
last year it was Bruce Mackey, he was chairman of
It
the planning
was,
board.
yeah. I did it for 6 years, but I think that was when I was on the planning board. I mean, if Tom doesn't want to do it, I can volunteer for it.
Historically, it's been the town planner.
Yeah. Okay.
Or a member of the planning board, yeah.
Well, they're reorganizing tonight, so I guess maybe put it before them for a future meeting.
Yeah, if we get out of here by 7.
Well,
You want to hold that off?
well,
till
what
next
is,
meeting?
what is the time? Are we under a time?
I don't think so. I think
All right.
it's-
All right, yeah, why don't you speak to Mr. Bott
will.
and discuss it, and maybe we'll put it on the next, we'll get it on an upcoming agenda.
Mhm.
All right. Next item, discussion and possible vote on technology upgrades at Town Hall. This was something I requested, and it sort of ties in a little bit with what Ms. Bogart was talking about. We've talked a number of times in here about getting technology upgrades in this room and Town Hall in general. I think we talked way back when we had COVID funds about using some of that money, and it hasn't really happened, and I'm certainly not the technology person to speak to this, but I guess my thought was, and we could probably roll the website into this as well if we need some website upgrades, but I would just like the board to authorize Mr. Fennessy to put together a 3 or 4 person, however members he thinks he needs, working group to brainstorm what we need to do to bring our technology up a little bit, how much it costs, because we don't know how much it will cost. I know we have some money in the budget, but I think we need some people who certainly know more than I do about it to look into it, figure out what we need, figure out how much it would cost, and get back to us so we can decide what we're going to do. And
I agree, Mr. Chair. Not to make this personal, but my husband and I own a computer software consulting firm, and so I sent him over here today to do a few things, to check out a few things, and I think that's a really terrific idea. I mean, there have been, for example, some upgrades in the library, and I believe that was due to Mr. LaFawn sort of doing things quietly. But there's quite a bit that could be done. And I won't go through this whole list right now if you'd like to move on, but
no,
be happy to.
I'd love to hear some of the ideas, because this wasn't my idea, so I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well,
so would I.
the first few are about the website, and one of the ones that's a little bit scary is that there's no what they call a double opt-in. So the website right now says if you want to sign up to get alerts, here's what's happening on the web, you just give them your email. So any old person, a prankster, could give, Jim Hoffman's private email, and he wouldn't have any way of knowing. All of a sudden, he's getting all these things on his computer. And usually, when you go to most standard websites, you give them your email, and then they email you saying, "Is this you? Do you really want to subscribe?" And you answer yes or no, whichever the case is, and that way it keeps those third parties from interfering. And also, I've noticed that alerts are reported by email only, and a lot of people just don't get email. There are people who actually don't get email, but people get texts, and they should be able to to actually have that option. I want to be alerted by text.
Yeah, I thought of that as well.
Yeah.
Text is really where it's at today.
Yeah, I mean, and again, going to a little bit what you were talking about earlier, there are too many clicks. You have to go through too many stages to get to things. And I think things like minutes and agendas and so on, they should be coordinated somehow so that you only have to click once, maybe not 3-4 times to get to what you're looking for. And then it would be nice also if we could have a link to all the meetings that are televised on Area 58. If we could all have that YouTube link up on the website, then everyone who even just has a phone could go to YouTube and watch the meeting. You don't even have to have a TV. You don't have to, because to get to YouTube sometimes is quite the navigation itself. So it would be nice just to have that link. And then as far as this meeting room is concerned, which is something I really wanted Steve's input on, he says that Area 58 does have the ability to feed directly from a presentation computer to the camera. And sometimes it may be a question of the cables that are being used. We just don't know, and we don't know the expense of that. So that's something maybe this committee could come up with. And there is, not that we necessarily want to do this, but there is that ARPA funding, and it includes infrastructure upgrades. So
I just we all may have ideas about what we'd like to see but I think the first thing we need to do is put a group together who understands how these things
Right.
work. Because I certainly don't. I can't.
Well, that to me is a very important point, because right now, if you're watching it at home, and Mr. Fennessy has a presentation to make, and he puts it up there, you can't see it at home, because it's not being directly fed to the cable station.
That's right.
So that's a very important thing for the viewers at home.
It is. And the only suggestion I would make, Mr. Fennessy, is that you reach out and perhaps include Rich Goulart from Area 58 or someone else if he wants to include somebody else, but somebody from Area 58, so we can make sure that whatever we do in here sort of jives with how they do it there. Mr. Fennessy, do you think you need a motion from the board to put together this working group?
I
Or
don't think so. I think I just put it
Yeah,
together.
I don't think
It's just
so
an ad
either.
hoc out of my office.
Yeah, if you could just think about who would be
Okay.
good, and if any of the board members have suggestions, certainly let Mr. Fennessy know, and at some point, just let us know who's on the group. That would be. Does anyone else have any other thoughts on this?
No, I was going to ask yeah, go for it, John.
I got a question that, I'm just going by memory. It seems like every year there's a capital outlay item that usually says town-wide technology upgrades. So I just don't want to get to the point that we already have groups in place that are working on these things, whether it's for the town or for the school, for wherever, but I just, don't we already have that initiative in place?
Yeah.
All for upgrading technology at town hall, but just we don't want to have like 2 or 3 different groups, doing kind of like the same type of analysis.
I don't think
So-
we do.
Yeah, so this year, we separated out some money out of the total that generally was being held by the schools to take care of upgrades and other things. So there's 56,000 that was in capital plan for town side of upgrades. So that's what we would use for something like this.
And again, part of this is just, we need to know what we need before we
Right,
know
right.
how much it will
The
cost.
equipment and
And
the
that's part of it, is just to
personnel.
have somebody come in and look at the infrastructure that's here and how it works together and tell us what we need.
Mhm.
Do one of you want to be on? I mean, it was your idea. You've had ideas. You're quiet, but I know you have ideas, and John too. Do any of us have an interest in it? We're talking about it. Let's just talk now.
I mean,
I'm good.
I think any of us could attend a working group meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a technology background, so it's, I think, again, if any of us have suggestions on what we'd like to see or thoughts we have, we could certainly, Mr. Fennessy know, but I certainly couldn't sit in a working group. What they're gonna be talking about is gonna go right over my head, so I can't, I wouldn't be able to sit in those discussions.
We can let Mr. Fennessy know.
Absolutely. All right. Anything else on that item?
All
Do
right.
we need to vote or no?
Nope,
No.
I don't think so. We just, it's just a limited working group, and
Okay,
we'll go forward.
sounds good.
All right, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Fennessy, for taking this on for
Thank
us.
you.
All right, let's see, next item, approval to submit petitions to the state senator and state representative for the following annual town meeting articles that require a special act. The Cranberry Village Wells, removal of Carver Police Department from civil service, and the amended town administrator bylaw. Mr. Fennessy, do you?
Yeah, so we just need a vote of the board to submit this to the state. So that's basically, this should be 1 minute just to, it already was voted by
Yeah,
the
these are-
board, it was voted by. town
All the
meeting.
three were
Yeah,
all at
yeah,
town,
All three, so.
a town meeting.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve, that we submit the petitions to the state senator and state representative for the following annual town meeting articles that require a special act: Cranberry Village Wells, removal of Carver Police Department from civil service, and amended town administrator bylaw.
Is-
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Mr. Hoffman?
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Ms. Hewitt?
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jen Bogart says aye.
Mr. Goddard?
Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. It is unanimous. 6:15. This is an item that came in less than 48 hours in advance that appears to have some urgency to it. So, and it relates to Article 5 that was approved at the annual town meeting. Discussion and possible vote to support Habitat for Humanity's application for funding through the Department of Housing and Community Development's Neighborhood Stabilization Program for the 11 Green Street project.
Mr. Chair, I can speak to this,
Sure.
if you will. So it actually centers around Article 5 and Article 6,
Okay.
but particularly Article 6. So Article 5 was transferring 11 Green Street from the care and custody of the treasurer collector
that's
to
right.
the select board, with the intent of allowing the town, the select board, to then either rent or sell 11 Green Street for an affordable home for a veteran. Article 6 was the Community Preservation Act portion that was awarded to Habitat for Humanity for the renovation of 11 Green Street. So I did ask for Jim Middleton and Amy Belmore from Habitat to give me a little explanation, so I'm just going to read this quickly from them. So they need a letter from the select board of support for what they're trying to do. And here's what they're trying to do. Mass Housing is contracting with the Department of Housing and Community Development to administer the new Neighborhood Stabilization Grant Program. So eligible properties must have current health and safety or building code violations, be at risk of losing insurance coverage, or be otherwise blighted or substandard. Funds can be used for activities where the scope of work includes construction, reconstruction, renovation, repair, or improvement of properties. The work can also include hazardous materials abatement, mobility adaptations, and other work to mitigate the conditions. And the end product must be an affordable unit. So they're going to be doing mostly rehabilitation. There's probably going to be a lot of other stuff, possibly hazardous material abatement and mobility adaptations, that kind of thing. They also noted that the grants can cover soft costs, which would help to fill their funding gap if they were approved to actually buy this house. But they are very aware that in order for us to sell this property to an affordable housing organization such as themselves, we do have to go out and do an RFP. So they're not just assuming they're going to get this. It has to be an RFP. But should they get it, it could help with the costs of purchasing it as well. So I think it's a good cause, and their deadline is the day after tomorrow.
I know,
So-
last minute.
Yeah.
All right.
So I guess they just need a vote by the board to allow the chair or vice chair
To sign a letter. in
to
support.
sign a letter of support for this.
Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Hoffman?
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Ms. Hill?
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jen Bogart says aye.
Mr.
John
Carter?
Carter says aye.
All right, thank you. It is approved. Mr. Fennessy, back to your town administrator update.
Okay. And we're a pretty good time, I guess.
Oh, yeah, we're back.
So,
We'll
okay,
make
that was
it.
quick, the last few. This won't be. So on April 1st, the first thing is outdoor dining update. On April 1st, the governor signed the Chapter 42 of the Acts of 2022 and extends to the cities and towns the ability to serve, expand their outdoor dining again. And that you can do so without the ABCC's approval. So it just opens up the pre-pandemic or the pandemic openings. It's extending it to April 1st, 2023. Beer, wine, and cocktails can also be sold to go, like they were before. The caveat is that to be sold to go, they have to be the same price as they are inside the restaurant. So you can't sell for less or for more outside. So that's just the outdoor dining one.
And there's nothing we have to do about it,
Nothing we have to
right?
do on that.
Okay.
It's just a part of the law now that just extends it.
Okay.
The Plymouth Airport update, I have that on there. In December, the Airport Commission gave the Select Board an initial update regarding the airport master plan process. At that meeting, they stated a second public meeting would be held in the spring. They would present a number of alternatives based on aviation forecasts for the Plymouth Airport. Their consultant completed the forecast, and the FAA has reviewed and approved the forecast, and several initiatives have been prepared. Forecast shows a flat activity track for the airport, with small increases in business aircraft activity over the next 20 years. As noted previously, the Airport Commission is committed to keeping the airport as a B2 category, which will accommodate the same size aircraft as they've used in the past. So not increasing the type of aircraft. The Commission will not support changing the airport category to any large aircraft category. And the Commission anticipates that the master plan document will be finalized this summer. So if anybody's interested in getting a copy of the initiatives, I can send them by email if you just want to email me. My link is on the website if you can find it. So, and I'll send out the copy of it. And I think I already sent that out to the board.
I think you did. Any questions on the board on that? All right.
This is on the FEMA blizzard reimbursement, if everybody remembers the blizzard of 22. On April 18th, 2022, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts received a major disaster declaration for the counties of Bristol, Norfolk, Plymouth, and Suffolk for the January 28-29 severe winter storm and snowstorm, otherwise known as the blizzard. This declaration has activated the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA's public assistance program, making funding available to cities and towns. Eligible costs includes disaster-related costs for emergency work and permanent repair and replacement of facilities that were damaged as a direct result of the storm, as well as snow assistance under FEMA guidelines for that 48-hour period. Tom Walsh, Director of Emergency Management, is coordinating the town's efforts in seeking reimbursement, and it's a very complicated process. We're gonna have Shelby in our office assist him in doing a lot of the work that has to go into filing now electronically. And in the past, it was done on paper, it was a little easier, but now it's a lot more complicated. The initial step that he has to do is to seek funding is associated with a declaration, is for Tom to participate in an applicant briefing, which provides details on eligible expenses and costs incurred as a result of the storm, as well as a reimbursement process for applying for and receiving federal funds under the program. Our expenses for Carver, of which we will receive 75% reimbursement, can be well over $100,000. So this is not a small ticket. We could get anywhere from 75,000 or more, depending on what we can come up with on the expenses. So I want to say thank you to Tom for taking this on. It's a lot of work, and he does a great job down there. So want to keep you abreast of that. I also had on here King Richard's Fair, which we took out of order, so that was good, because it was good having the chief here. And it's been a very good working group that we put together for this, and and I think we'll get to where we have to be on that, once the study is done. The preparation for the special legislative acts, I had that on there too, but we already did that, so. The last thing I have is something nice for a change. So Mr. Tom Bott, our interim planner, will no longer use that title. I'm pleased to inform the board that he has accepted the position of Director of Planning with no interim attached to his title anymore.
Yes.
So he's on board,
Yes,
signed up today.
that's awesome.
That's wonderful news.
Yeah,
Thank
he's
you.
doing a great job down there. He's really had an impact on the town, set up for town meeting, runs those meetings very well, and I'm very pleased with his work. And I was pleased with his work when he was in Kingston, and we stole him, so, so it's good to have him here. So that's it on my end.
All right, great. Any questions from anybody on that?
No, I
Glad
would
to hear
just, congratulations to all of us for getting a really good town planner. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I agree. He's going to be a tremendous addition to the town. All right. Minutes, licenses, topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. We already covered the Habitat for Humanity letter. Our next meeting is May 3rd, 2022. It's possible, depending on the agenda, that may change. We may not need that meeting, but we may. So we'll keep everybody updated on that. Approval of the minutes of April 5th, 2022. Any?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes of April 5th, 2022.
All right.
I'll second that, but I have one minor amendment,
All right.
and, hold on, sorry. I believe that's on page 3, at the top, under Article 6. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm at the end of that first paragraph, where it says if the owner sells, and we're talking about 11 Green Street again, the affordable veterans housing, there will be a restriction to keep it affordable, but will not need to be kept as a veterans housing. And I believe, am I on the wrong page? It may be page 4.
Yeah, I think it's actually page 4.
Sorry, it's on the top of page 4. I beg your pardon.
Oh, I'm sorry, what was the correction?
I'm just going to add it. I believe it was at that point where I pointed out that the Department of Housing and Community Development gives veterans preferential treatment. They can't promise that it will be a vet, but they are absolutely given preferential treatment as for these affordable units.
So you're adding in I'm sorry, you're adding in a sentence somewhere?
It would be the last sentence of that first paragraph that I guess Hewens pointed out the DHCD gives veterans preferential treatment for these affordable units.
I recall that conversation.
Okay, good, thanks.
So do I have to make a motion to approve as amended by Ms. Hewens? Okay.
That'd be of no.
If you will.
Motion to approve 4/5/22 minutes as amended by Ms. Hewens.
All right. Is there a second?
Oh, second.
All right. Any other discussions? All right. All in favor? Mr. Hoffman?
I was not
Oh,
at that
okay.
meeting, so I'm going to
All right.
abstain from it.
Sarah Hewens says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Bogart says aye.
And Mr. Cotter, you obviously were not there as
abstain.
well. All right. Okay. The minutes of April 8th, 2022.
Make a motion, we approve minutes of April 8th, 2022.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Hoffman?
I abstain. I was not at that meeting either.
Okay. Ms. Hewens?
Sarah Hewens says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Bogart says aye.
And Mr.
Abstain.
Cotter obviously abstains. All right. Thank you. Select Board notes. There are none. Select Board community announcements. Mr. Hoffman?
I actually have a couple today, so I'm not going to be as quiet as Jen wanted me to. It's all right.
Hey.
First, I just want to thank everybody that came to town meeting, especially that third night where we all were nervous that we weren't get a quorum, but we did. So that just shows that everybody was interested in what was going on in the town. So I appreciate that. Also, I would like to welcome Mr. Cotter, Mr. John Cotter, to the board, and I'd also like to thank Bob Belbin for his 3 years on the board. I got to work with him for 2 years, and we didn't always agree on everything, but I know I did learn a lot from him, and I just want to publicly thank him for his time on the board. And last but not least, I'd like to thank my fellow select board members for the getting the budget passed, working with everybody. I know there's a lot of anxiety that we might not have a budget this year, that I even got a phone call that someone was worried we were going to go into receivership this year. So I just want to say that we all pulled up and worked together, and I think it's a great testament to everybody. So I just want to publicly thank my fellow select board members, including Bob Fennessy, also Sue Moquin from the finance director, the FinCom, and the capital outlay. So I just want to thank everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Ewens?
Well, I think Jim about covered it all. I echo those thanks, and I was very happy about that third night at town meeting as well. We got way more people than we thought we would the third night, and it was just wonderful to have that participation. And I also want to thank everyone who came to the polls and voted, and welcome to John.
Thank you.
Mr. Carter?
Yes, I guess I'm just looking forward to working with the new board. I can't wait to get started. I also want to thank Bob for his years of service. He's got a lot of knowledge with the town, and I know he cares deeply about the town. But I just want to thank everybody that came out on Saturday, and I can't wait to get started.
All right. Ms. Bogart?
Yeah, a little bit of a broken record. John, welcome to the board. I look forward to working with you in person, especially. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank Bob too, because I've told him years ago I was one of those people at town meeting that rolled my eyes every time he stood up. But as I got more involved and paid more attention, I saw him in a different light and really respected him. And sitting next to him for 2 years, it's hard. You can't say that guy doesn't care about this town. And I leaned over and asked him questions more than a couple times, and that guy, there's that saying, there's no stupid question. He never made me feel like one of my questions was stupid. He is an asset to this town. I know that I will miss sitting next to him. I'm happy to sit next to you, John, but I'm going to miss sitting next to Bob. And Bob, if you're watching, thank you, because you're a special guy.
Thank you. And for myself, I have a few tonight. I guess we all do. John, I want to welcome you to the board as well. Happy to work with you. And I also want to thank Bob Belbin for his service to the town. We agreed on some things, we disagreed on others, but I think he always had the town's best interests at heart. So thank you, Bob, for all your hard work. I want to thank Town Clerk Kara Dahill and her entire staff for the job she did at town meeting, all 3 nights of town meeting and at the election. I thought it was exemplary, so thank you. I want to thank everyone that came to town meeting, and I hope that some of you will consider applying for some of the board and committee openings that we have, because we really do need you to be more involved in our town. And I just want to, a lot of us have thanked a lot of different people who prepared for town meeting and different things, but I want to just acknowledge the hard work that Elaine Weston, Shelby Roy, and Nancy Hubbard here in the town administrator's office did, because I will tell you, personally, I was in there for several days prior to town meeting for different things, and they were constantly doing paperwork and organizing paperwork and just over and over doing things to prepare for town meeting, and I think that needs to be acknowledged. So thank you all, and with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Hoffman?
Jim Hoffman says aye.
Sarah Hewen says aye.
Mark Townsend says aye.
Jim Bogart says aye.
John Carter says aye.
All right, thank you, everybody. We are adjourned.